Intelligence testing across cultures, weird biases and global impact. What is weird? Weird stands for Western, educated, industrialized, rich, and democratic. The current issue is that most psychological studies come from these weird samples. We assume the findings from these studies can be generalized to non-weird populations. The problem is that this simply is not true. Intelligence is best described as the ability to think, reason, and understand instead of doing things automatically or by instinct. One of the most common ways to measure intelligence in humans is the IQ test, or the Stanford-Binet Intelligence Scale. It was first created by Lewis Terman at Stanford University in 1916. A few things that raise concerns are test biases, considering that this is used internationally, yet it was created at one of the most prestigious universities. In what ways would the scores differ? The weird findings. The sample was U.S. college students. The method they used was that the students completed the standardized intelligence test. The findings showed that the participants tended to score higher in analytic and abstract reasoning, which are the skills that the test primarily measures. This means that researchers argued that this happens not because weird individuals are more intelligent, but because the test was designed around skills taught in weird school systems. This means scoring high doesn't exactly mean that you haven't higher intelligence, you are just matched to the Western educational expectations. The non-weird findings. The sample, Kenyan school children who are non-Western, less industrialized, and with different cultural expectations around schooling. The method, researchers use the standardized intelligence test and then use local definitions of practical intelligence, such as identifying medicinal herbs or social responsibility. The findings were children who scored the highest on the practical intelligence test often scored lower on the standardized intelligence test. What this means. Intelligence depends on cultural context. Skills that are considered smart in one society are sometimes not the same in another. What was considered smart and important in the Western countries was not considered the same in non-Western countries. Overall, weird samples excel at analytic reasoning tasks because their schooling emphasizes test-taking, vocabulary, pattern recognition, and abstract thinking. Non-weird samples excel at practical, real-world knowledge, but show lower performance on weird tests because the tests do not match their environment or cultural priorities. This inconsistency shows that intelligence test scores are not universal indicators of ability. They affect what their culture teaches, values, and practices. Intelligence is not universal, it's cultural. Why do the findings differ? Cultural definitions of intelligence are not the same. Test familiarity exists, method differences occur, language barriers, and school and education bias. A weird sample simply cannot define intelligence. If it does, then that leads to misrepresentation, assumptions, and thinking that the culture is less intelligent because they took a test that was not designed for them. To reduce bias, we would need culturally adaptive testing and more inclusive research methods. Weird tests measure weird skills, not global intelligence of people. Using these tests worldwide also creates stereotypes. Overall, psychology needs more diverse samples to create fair assessments.